You are recording. And I'm on video. And you're going to be focused. And I am recording. And our audio is recording. Okay, cool.
And you're there already.
And now we're ready to go.
Perfect. And I think I heard Justin say it, but this is all edited, part of a bigger production. So if you feel like you don't know what you want to say, you can take a moment and gather your thoughts, and we will make you look really good. So,
amazing.
Yes,
Thank you.
of course.
Okay, cool. Well, I struck this out like I do a regular podcast, even though this is for a documentary episode. But hello, Russian River. What's the name of this town?
We are in Monterey.
Monterey. Okay, hello, Monterey, California. Hello, America. This is Justin at Seeking Context, speaking today with Rachel Ratlif, who helped build the temple at Burning Man in 2022. And looking forward to finding out about your life and your experience with Burning Man and experience with the temple. So thanks for speaking with me today.
Hi, Justin. Thanks.
Well, Rachel, could you just, for the production, could you state your name and where you're from and what you do in the default world?
My name is Rachel Ratlif. I live in San Francisco, have for a long time. And I'm an event organizer. I have a heart-centered event space, and I project manage things for healers and artists.
And so what is a heart-centered event space?
We host platonic cuddle parties and workshops. It's called Heart Lab, and the mission is to connect us more with ourselves and each other. So
Wow.
anything that does that is
Cool.
very,
And is that, you have a facility in San Francisco?
yeah.
Okay, cool. And what led you to this career? I believe you used to be an attorney?
I was a corporate lawyer for 15 years, and about 7 years ago, I just wasn't happy in relationship. I'd kind of been seeking and trying to figure out what it was that I needed and wanted. And I started, I suppose my introduction was ayahuasca. It really opened up a lot of things for me, and a lot of challenges and a lot of insight. And I came into community where everybody was kind of trying to grow more and learn more. And I tried all the things, breath work and ayahuasca, and platonic cuddles were really healing for me. And so all of these things that were so important to me and so useful to me, and I wanted to bring them to more people. I just think we all need more healing and connection is healing. Mm-hmm. So that's how I came to, I did a lot of events out of my house, just like, oh my God, I found this person or this thing that's amazing, let me share it. And I decided to do that on a bigger stage.
Mm-hmm. That's cool. So you were just doing this in the course of your personal life.
Yeah.
And then decided, I want to do this for a career.
I don't know about career. It's just, I don't know. Yeah, career. It's an interesting one. It applies like a long-term commitment. All I know is I want more healing for the world, and to the extent somebody resonates with what I've done, cool. Let's do more.
Yeah, that's cool. And so, if people want to learn more about that, is there a thing on the? Do you have a website, or how can people learn about the space that you've got?
I don't have a website. It's on Facebook, Heart Lab SF. Website is one of the many things that I was supposed to do during pandemic when we had nothing to do, but like everyone else, I didn't learn any languages or do anything that I should have done. So.
Okay, well, we can find you on Facebook.
Yes, you can find me on Facebook.
And you can find the space and learn about it that way. That's cool. Well, so tell me about your experience with Burning Man. How did you, how have you come to learn about Burning Man, and how did you get involved with the Temple Project in 2022?
I went to Burning Man for the first time in 2017 because of the people I was hanging out with, and that's when I really learned about it. And I went again in 2018, and then I had to skip 2019 for family stuff, and then the pandemic came, and I had started my event space, Heart Lab, at the beginning of the pandemic. Like the grand opening was, March 25th, 2020, of course.
Oh, no.
Of course it wasn't, but yeah. So tough timing. And I spent 2 years waiting, and this was my life's purpose. This was what I had come to, is this is the thing I need to do. And then I couldn't do it. And that was really hard, among many other things. And so at the end of 2021, I was tired of waiting for COVID to end for Heart Lab, and I was talking to a friend of mine who does big art at Burning Man, and I said, I really need something to do with my time that is impactful and meaningful. And he said, well, Temple needs a volunteer coordinator. It's not an easy thing, but check it out, and I did. And I came onto the team in January of 2022.
Cool. And so what is the coordinator? What was your role and job?
Yeah, it started out as volunteer coordinator, and as happens in volunteer organizations, you kind of, everyone finds their way to what they're good at and what they have capacity for. So I did, several different things. But volunteer coordinator is a lot about communication. It's about, sort of gathering people in, telling them what the job is, bringing them in, finding the right people for the right place, helping the artist figure out who's going on the playa build. It's a lot of communication and coordination, and who needs what tickets and where do they go. It's project management and organization.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you worked directly with Renzo, the architect. Would you say that was he was your sort of supervisor? How did you guys divide responsibilities in terms of who did what?
Yeah, and that was always a moving target. I mean, the artist Renzo, the artist is always in charge. It's their financial liability, legal liability. They are responsible for the temple, and we are all in service to the temple and the artist. So, I looked at what needed doing and worked with, we had an amazing team of people, and we would all kind of say, oh, what needs to be done here? Okay, who wants to do it, has time to do it, and we all kind of helped each other and collaborated.
And were you involved in recruiting the team that ended up building the temple itself?
Yeah, and so there's always, as you know, the pre-playa build where we're building, usually in the Bay Area, and that's kind of come one, come all. Anybody who's around and wants to shows up whenever they want to. And then, June or July, we have to figure out who is going to be on playa, building for 2.5 weeks. And ultimately, again, that's the artist's decision, and I'm here just to help him find people and talk about the people and make sure the people have what they need. And for me, in life, a lot is about communication. And that's kind of what I spend a lot of my time thinking about, is what do people need in order to understand what's happening? And what words do you use to communicate that? And how do you manage expectations? How do you tell people what your boundaries are and find out what their boundaries are? And how do you, and especially when you're talking to a large group of people, it's pretty complex, nuanced communication to help everybody understand what's available and what's expected and what's possible. So a lot of it is communication, both within the team and with Renzo, as well as with everyone involved.
And what can you tell me about Renzo Verbeek?
He is passionate and persistent, and cares deeply. Very, very sensitive. Cares deeply about people. Cares deeply about creating spaces. I mean, his passion has been architecture since he was a kid, and so he really cares a lot, and that comes through.
Right.
Yeah.
And did you? I felt like when we were out on the playa, you were sort of a team effort in leading the effort. Did you feel like you felt a lot of responsibility and stress?
Yeah.
During the build?
For sure. I love taking care of people. I love creating an environment where everybody can do what they need to do and feels nourished in that, and has what they need to do their job. And it was really fun when it was 10 people, when it was 20 people, when it was 30 people. When it got to 80 people, and it was, weeks of dust and heat, it got harder. Yeah, it definitely, I think that took its toll on all of us.
Mhm.
Yeah, I was tired. It was a lot.
Did you feel like you were prepared and that the group was prepared once? Like, did you have a plan? Did the plan work? I guess is sort of my question.
Yes,
Um,
I do think the plan worked.
And how did you come up with this plan? Did you have a good? Did you and Renzo come up with the plan all on your own, or was there a lot of?
No, not at all. I would say the plan for Playa, you're going to talk to Garth, who was in charge of city camp and the camp, and it's a massive endeavor to house people, get them in the right place and the right footprint, and then kitchen. I mean, we had the best food ever, and we had 20 people on kitchen, and food is so what are all the things people need to feel nourished to do their jobs?
Mhm.
It's food, it's shelter, it's those things, and we had a really amazing group of people who handled kitchen and made sure we had healthy food 5 times a day and plentiful. And yeah, we had an amazing team doing all of that. And so the plan, we also made a lot of plans in advance, and they didn't all work out as we wanted them to, and we had to shift a lot on Playa.
Mhm.
And that's where it gets tough, because you have these plans, you're like, I know how this is going to look, and we create a vision, and then we get out there and big things happen, and we have to shift, and that's stressful too, because you can't just go down the street and buy a new thing. Because you're in the middle of nowhere, and you have to improvise and try to stay kind and focused.
Right, right. Well, when you were involved in January at the start of this, were you here in Santa Rosa, like packing everything up, helping with the pre-build of all of the equipment? Like, were there spreadsheets? How did it all happen?
Well, and I want to say a lot of people, because of pandemic, had been on this temple project Empyrean since fall of 2019.
Mhm.
There was a whole project that happened before 2022, and I want to honor those people, because that was a lot. It was a lot to try to hold this together during pandemic, and talk about shifting and changing and having to that was a challenge, I hear.
Right. You kind of came in with the fresh energy.
I did. I was lucky that way. And in January, it was kind of starting over. As much as had happened in the last 2 years, we're like, okay, now we have a new grant from Burning Man. Did we know it was happening? Yeah, I think that's right. We didn't know for sure it was happening in 2022 until a bit later, but we were, forging ahead.
Right. And everybody had the heartbreak of the previous 2 years.
Yeah, that was a lot of emotion. But we, assumed it was going to, and did a Kickstarter and did the whole process, which is, getting a team together. Who's going to do what needs to be done. Fundraising is probably the biggest stress, because it's the biggest unknown.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just hard to raise money at any time, especially during pandemic. So fundraising was really hard. Getting people isn't hard, because everyone loves Temple. People feel it holds a lot of emotion for a lot of people in the community, and everyone wants to be a part of it, which is a blessing and a curse, because we have to turn people away sometimes, and people don't get to do what they want to do, and that's hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For those, when you were picking the team that goes out there, did you have like criteria, like, okay, this is the type of person that we need in order to survive and be successful in this challenging endeavor?
There were some specific skills we needed, building skills.
Mm-hmm.
So that certainly comes into play. A lot of people we chose from the pre-Playa build in Santa Rosa, and that's it's a combination of so many things. It's personality, it's do they work well with others? I mean, collaboration is the biggest thing. You are out there in really harsh conditions. Everyone's going to be tested. And, to me, the measure of a person is not how they behave when things are going well. It's how do they behave when things are hard and things get really hard out there. So, we try to kind of figure out who's gonna help the whole, who's gonna contribute to the whole and get temple built.
Right.
Yeah, and so it's somewhat that ephemeral kind of personality thing. And if people were far away, we interviewed them via video to kind of get a sense and a feel of them. So part of it's expertise, and part of it's just the feel of who's gonna be a good teammate.
Right. That's cool. There were some difficult moments during this particular build. I think the one that stands out for me the most is the morning after the giant dust storm that knocked over the flame. Can you tell me about that moment for you and for Renzo and the team, and how you feel like the team worked through it?
Yeah, I do remember that. It was about 7 o'clock in the morning, maybe 6:30 or 7, and I was still in my trailer, and someone came to find me and said, Renzo needs you. The flame got knocked over. And I went out, and Renzo was really distraught, and he was distraught because he was, someone could have gotten really hurt. It happened apparently at 3 o'clock in the morning, but our lighting team was out there working, and they heard it, they saw it, and he was, he is so much about safety, and he was pretty distraught about that, but everybody rallied around, and it put us back in building, and the thing about the ply build is you almost never have enough time to finish, and so every moment counts, and that was put us back a lot of moments.
A couple of days, probably.
Probably a day.
Yeah.
Everybody works so hard under such difficult conditions, and oh my God, we have to redo that. Are you kidding? But everyone did, and everyone, banded together. Like I said, things were hard, and the people we had were really just banded together to get it done again. Nobody was nobody collapsed. Nobody was forget this, it's too hard. Everybody just banded together and did it.
Yeah.
And it's one of those moments that feels really hard, but when it's over and we've gone through that challenge together, it's kind of magical.
Yeah. How did it feel for you when the flame was or the project was complete?
A lot of feelings. Relief, a letting down, and as much as I had so many feelings, and it's funny because this project was the hardest thing I've done in my professional life. Despite being a corporate lawyer for 15 years, this was harder. And there was a lot of relief when it was done. But when it was all over after the event, there was also sadness because we did something really kind of crazy, beautiful, hard, and a lot of great relationships came out of that. So a lot of mixed emotions, for sure.
Did you? What was it like for you watching the burn? And was it different because you had built this temple from watching previous temples?
Absolutely. Yeah. And when I watched the temple burn previously, it was often about my own experience. Who had I lost? What had it meant to me as an individual? This was very much what had we all gone through together to make this happen. And that's why there was a lot of mixed emotions watching it burn. Kind of some glee, some joy, and the burning of it, the burning of the hard times, and some sadness at seeing it end. Yeah.
There was a night during the burn when Trice asked everybody to say, "Why are you here?" And I'm curious if you remember what you said. And just now, after you looking back on it, like, why did you do that? And what did it mean to you?
I did it to be of service. Yeah. Yeah, I did it to be of service. Pandemic was really hard. I lost a lot. People, relationships, purpose, all sorts of things. And I wanted kind of my work, myself, who I am, to have meaning, to be of service. That's what it meant and still means to me.
And you felt like you got what you asked for.
Yeah.
Yeah. During the burn, you had I'm trying to remember what the chant was like. We had a cheer at the end of breakfast.
Yes.
And everything. I was wondering if you could
Yes.
tell people about that and where that came from.
That might be a better story for Renzo, because he's the one who came up with the cheer. But as he tells it, when he came onto the build in 2019, the woman who was running it at the time, she came up to him the moment he got on. She looked at him, she said, "I'm awesome, you're awesome, this is Temple, and everybody, it's gonna be awesome." And so he brought that forward to this temple. Let me see if I get that right. I'm awesome, you're awesome, this is Temple, and it's gonna be awesome. And that was the cheer that kind of kept us going. Sometimes we're kind of dragging. We're like, okay, I'm awesome, you're awesome, but it was, but it worked.
That's cool. Yeah, well, I didn't know the background on that, and it seemed like you were always initiating that at the end of a meal. You were kind of like trying to keep everybody's spirits up.
Oh, that's funny. That's so funny. I don't remember me being that. I did it sometimes, but I feel like Tree J was. Yeah, I feel like my role, what I enjoyed and what I did was kind of more like stealth, seeing what needed to be done and kind of seeing who needed what. And I feel like Tree J was the best cheerleader. Like we all had our roles, and Renzo was an amazing leader and just keeping us on track and going through it all and just persevering. And I'm like moving around, just kind of seeing what anybody needed. And Tree J was really brought the heart. I think often to me was like, yeah, I feel like he was a great cheerleader.
Right. Well, you had a lot of others. I guess that opens up another question. Like, did you feel like you had a lot of support from the community, that you were doing it together, and not that just you were in charge?
Yeah, absolutely. Everybody. We all had our role to play, and there were some people in particular who really, everybody has different abilities and ability to like step up and take responsibility. But there were so many people who did that on Playa and who were there, and I had my low points, and what I find. I think I have a saying that, if you don't break down at least once at Burning Man, you're not doing it right. And so, I do Burning Man right. I have my breakdowns. And what I've found is that there's always somebody there. Somebody like my Burning Man angel comes along, I don't know who it is, and they just show up and they're there. And I had one of those moments, our first dust storm. I'd never been in a dust storm like this. It was 8 hours the first week we were there, 8 hours nonstop, and it was scary, even in my trailer, just being buffeted back and forth all alone in the middle of the night. For some reason, it was really scary in a way that I had not anticipated. And I was so shaken up the next morning, I could not, totally get it together. And I felt guilty that I wasn't being the sort of in charge person I was supposed to be. I was a little bit of a mess emotionally. And I was sitting down at breakfast, and this guy comes from another build. I can't remember his name now. He was this really big guy who'd been burning for 15 years, and a builder, and he came and sat in front of me, and he said, "How are you?" And I said, I, you know, I don't want to, I just don't want to burden you with that right now. And he said, I'm sitting here, I asked you and I really want to know. And I said, I'm kind of a mess. That was so scary, and I feel, and I don't even know why, it seems so silly to be that scared of a dust storm. And he told me, this big, burly, experienced burner, that every time he sees that wall of dust coming, he gets a panic attack. And I was like, oh, I feel better now that I'm not a total wuss, right? And then he went on to say, you know, whenever something happens to me, I know it goes back to my childhood. And so what in your childhood did this remind you of? And he sat there while I went back into my childhood. I was like, oh, when I was alone and scared and there was nobody there. And that was such, like, he helped me so much. I went into the desert after breakfast, and I just cried. And I felt so much better afterwards. I came back to camp, and all of a sudden I was my best self again. Like, I had been able to understand and process that and come back like refreshed and resourced because, you know, this guy came along and sat with me and helped me. Mm-hmm. And that to me is that's the essence of Burning Man for me. Is people who come along with no motive, no agenda, just to be there for you.
Yeah, you answered my question. What is Burning Man to you? What can you give us a similar sense of what does the temple mean for you?
The temple is remembrance. It's ritual and remembrance. I'm going to take the time. I think in our society we push away pain so much. Mm-hmm. We avoid it. We push it away. We're supposed to be happy all the time. And the temple is a place where we're actually allowed to fully feel and remember. And we're allowed to bring the things of the people or the moments that mattered to us, whether they were wonderful and they're gone or whether they were really hard and they're gone. They're a place to go and remember and process and feel, and to do that in community with other people who are doing that, because we don't have space. We don't create space in our culture for grief, for individual grief or collective grief, and we kind of shame grief. Mm-hmm. And that's what the temple is to me, it's a place to do that.
Were you grieving anyone or any experience in particular this year? We had, yes. Both of my parents died during COVID. Oh, I'm sorry. And some, I was grieving some people who died and a friendship that died. Lots of things died in COVID. And they're reborn in many ways, and that's great. But at the time, it was hard. Yeah. And one of the things I loved, one of the things that resonated for me when I met Renzo, and he was telling me about the project, and that kind of showed me who he was he wanted more involvement. Only a certain number of people are in the Bay Area to come build the temple. And he wanted to involve more people in the building of temple, and so there were a couple of projects. One was people could pay money to Kickstarter and create a flag, decorate a flag that would fly on the temple. And the other was people could create what he called pillars. They are the fence posts around the temple. And you can do anything you want with the pillar. And people did amazing things, so much artistry, creativity, and just somebody had their grandfather's cane as a pillar, and it was just, it was really magical. And I created a pillar in which I had, photos of my parents, of other people I've lost, and the things I wished I had said to them.
And you know, it's really meaningful to do that, you know, for myself. So yeah, that's what temple meant to me this year.
Yeah. And one of the themes of the temple is impermanence and letting go. Do you feel like going through it, you moved to a different plane? You need to go back again next year.
Yeah, I think I've thought a lot about grief lately, and I don't think there's a moment when it goes away. I think there are many moments in which we move through it. It's like waves.
Mhm.
It definitely, that was a wave for me.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was a moment to take time and remember, because it sometimes feels easier and less painful to try to forget. And so I think much of the time we do forget. I go about my daily life and I forget what's happened. And there will be other moments, including the next temple, when I get some time and space to really intentionally and consciously go and remember that and feel that grief.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is there a place like Burning Man in the rest of the world?
No, because Burning Man isn't a place so much as an ethos, a value system. It's a fantasy of a different world, of a, you know, the as Charles Eisenstein I think said, the more beautiful world our hearts know. It's yeah, I mean the 10 principles are really a blueprint for a different way of being.
Mhm.
And that's and for a week, or you know, however long you're there, it's people really do mostly live it.
Mhm.
And we feel that, and we come back with this sense of possibility, hopefully, of what the world could be.
Yeah. And do you think you've been able to use things you've learned at Burning Man, this experience, in your daily life since then?
Yeah, absolutely. Part of it's self-expression. You know, it's funny, the costumes at Burning Man, they may seem superficial, but they're not. They're an expression of ourselves that we feel like we don't get to have in the rest of the world.
Yeah, that's an interesting way of looking at it.
And I've started being more expressed in kind of the way I have some of these crazy visors I'm kind of famous for now, and I made them for Burning Man, and then I came, and people loved them, and I came back and was like, wait, why do I not wear this all the time? And the reason is people don't do it. We feel like we might be judged. I wear these crazy furry visors around now, and people on the street stop me all the time, and they're like, oh, that's amazing. And I think the more we can all be our unique individual selves in the rest of the world, the more other people see that and feel the possibility of doing it themselves.
Yeah. Yeah, so you're wearing your visors around San Francisco.
Uh-huh. And many
Cool.
other places, like, and you know, when I go home to Texas and Oklahoma and go to, you know, Orlando, Florida, I wear them everywhere. And it's, you know, one of those small things. So that's a kind of outward manifestation of Burning Man and self-expression.
Mhm.
And then also, one thing that really impacts me a lot at Burning Man is people do things for you without an expectation of anything in return. And if you think about it, it's very seldom in this world that happens. People expect money, people expect you to hang out with them, people expect all kinds of things from other people. And at Burning Man, you probably won't, like, you know, that guy who came and sat with me at breakfast, he expected nothing. I never saw him again. You know, this impermanence teaches us to give without expectation.
Mhm.
And so I try to bring that back.
Yeah.
That's the key.
Like the Dusty Diner.
Yes.
That was the best. Right?
Yes.
Did you get a pancake that
Yes,
morning?
I did. Yeah, just these people who go to so much effort to make this beautiful thing for you, right? All the gifts that come to play, and people do these beautiful things, and they do it for the joy of giving, the sheer joy of giving and self-expression and fun, and it's magic.
Yeah. Cool. Did you have any, that was a joyful experience. Any particularly memorable or joyful experiences at Burning Man this year?
Oh, it was a harder year because it was kind of temple was ever present in my mind, and but one night I was like, I'm gonna go and have the regular burn, and I went off on my bike, and it was a really dusty night, and I was on my bike. I was off my bike walking because it was so dusty, and I wandered by a camp, and I heard Prince playing, and Prince is really meaningful in my life. I'm a huge fan, and that doesn't even quite cover it. And I stopped in, and I just started dancing alone to Prince. There were a couple of other people there, and they were having a Prince night. And I was like, oh my God, and the music on Playa, I get my fill of electronic music. And there's not a lot of music I love, which is, funk and soul. And so Prince, oh my God, 2 hours of Prince. And I ended up dancing in the dust. And then there was another guy who came along and loved Prince just as much as I did. And we serenaded each other in the dust while we danced to Prince for 2 hours. And it was, again, one of those moments with this wonderful human being I will never see again. And we had this, this moment together. And yeah, that was magic.
That's cool. Anything you learned this year that you didn't expect?
Yeah. Working on temple really challenged a lot of personal stuff for me. The interpersonal dynamics were challenging at times, and I saw the work I still need to do on myself, and holding myself steady, which is kind of I think it's my life's work, and kind of everybody's, is how do I know myself and see myself and hold myself in the world and move through the world in a way that's authentic and compassionate, and that's hard.
Yeah.
And was challenged.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was that dealing with conflict?
Yeah.
Like conflict resolution with others?
Yeah.
Like you were kind of in the middle of it a lot, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. What advice do you have for somebody they're going to volunteer, they're going to go out there, they're going to help build the temple next year? How do you set yourself and the team up for success?
Kind of the same advice I have for life, which is know what you need, really take care of yourself, and let other people know what you need. Yeah. And communicate. Know yourself and communicate yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also compassion for others. Like compassion for yourself, and that's the knowing what you need. And then also understand everybody else is trying to get their needs met too. See if you can figure out what that is together.
Right. That's cool. Any big plans for the coming year? You going back to Burning Man in 2023? You need to take a little bit of a break.
I think I'll go back.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, as hard as it was sometimes, having that kind of purpose and building something beautiful together was magical. I don't know yet what I will do, what I will bring to Playa, but I'm excited to figure it out.
Cool. Well, Rachel, thanks so much for talking with me today.
Thank you, Justin.
It's very interesting, and I didn't know about your parents. I'm very sorry.
Thank you.
I'm glad that the temple was there for you.
Yeah, a lot of people have been there. Yeah. Thank you, Justin.
Okay, thanks. Caden, that's a wrap, or did you have to leave?
Caden has left the building.
He might have left. He had another engagement he had to go to. Once we get the sound levels right, then I know that it's good to go.
Yeah.
So, Cool, that was fantastic.
Thank you.
Cool. Well, good luck with your acupuncture.
Thank you for making time. Yeah,
You.
and I love this project. Thank you for doing